o'clock, so I'm going to start recording, and then if other people come in, then we'll let them come in. Ken was talking about the problems of doing the homework, and that's just the way it works. Unfortunately, we get outside or we do it and we get rolling, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Okay, we are going to start with the homework, and let me see, Amy, I've got you first on the list. So let me open you. There you go. And then I'm going to open all of these. There we go. And open them in Adobe Camera Raw. I am showing this in, oh, you all can't see that. Sorry. Can you?
I can see it.
I can see it.
I
The
can see
big
it.
picture?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Yes. Is it cut off on the right-hand side?
No. No, it's fine.
Our pictures are, well, on mine, everybody's picture is covering up some of the right-hand side.
Okay, 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing. There we go for just a second, because I don't think that you all could see everything. So I'm just going to go to here. There we go. And now you all can see that. Okay, so now you see all the way across? Big picture?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's what I want you to see. Okay. So what I'm showing you all is Bridge, and Bridge is in Photoshop. So when you get to where you're processing your photos, you can process in either Bridge, Adobe Camera Raw. This is now Adobe Camera Raw, or you can use Lightroom, whichever one you would like. And then I have a class that will teach you how to use that as well. Okay, so Amy, here is your two little stuffed animals, and then your Ragoon creeper behind that, one of my favorite plants. I love those. And I'm going to move you all over here so that, yeah, move you all out of the way for just a second. There you go. Okay. And top picture, here's your f-stop right here. And here's your shutter speed right here. And just as an FYI, here's your lens right here. Okay, so you can see how much you've got that beautiful blown out background. Everything looks good, nice and soft. That's your 4.5. And then you did this just right, because when you go to 5.6, there's no loss in light at all. So you kept the exposure exactly the same. That was the goal. And then this takes us to 6.7. So once again, just no drop off in light. Everything stays exactly the same. Little background back in there is still out of focus. And then coming at 8, still a pretty good amount of the background is out of focus. And that's simply because you are really, really close to your subject. And then here you are at 11, and look at F11. Now we can kind of see that background back there. It's becoming a little bit more clear than when we were at 8. So when we get to 11, you can finally see it. And then when you get to F16, here it is. We can almost see the flowers back in there. And then I'll just click on it and blow it up, and you can see that we can sort of see the flowers back there, but they're not totally crisp yet. But you're keeping your exposure going the entire time. And then here you are at F22, down to 1/6 of a second. And so the wall is nice and solid, but we've got a little bit of movement going on in some of the plants. And so since the movement in the plants, that's at the 1/6 of a second. And then you did 2 extra ones for me. Oh, this was at 27, but you got really close for some reason. What'd you do to get close?
I had to zoom. I had to zoom in.
Ah.
So my focal length, I can't remember what I did. I think it was about 70. I can't see it.
Yeah, it's 70 millimeters.
Because I wanted to see if I could get up to, I think my camera, or that particular lens, goes up to f32. So I wanted to see if I could get that. So I just moved in to get those 2 extra pictures.
But it's not a variable f-stop lens, so you could do that whether you were at 70 millimeters or 24 millimeters, because that's not a variable f-stop lens. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a good it's a good illustration of how even at f27, we can't totally see the entire background there. And then here you went all the way to 32 and you kept your exposure going the entire time. So you did a great job on that one.
Thank you.
Hey, Stephanie, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Welcome. Okay. And then here we go to the dandelion fountain. And this is your shutter speed. And once again, here's the shutter speed, 1/4 of a second right here. And here's the f-stop at 38. And you're at ISO 100, just like I wanted you to do. But you notice that it is overexposed. And that's that problem of it's pretty bright out there. Even at f30, 38, it's pretty bright.
It was really bright. I don't do heat very well.
And then here, you know, once you go to 30 to 38, f38 at 1/8 of a second. So you got your light meter balanced here. So everything's looking good. But you see that if we blow these up, you notice how much movement we've got going on in there. So you're doing a good job. And then here we go to 1/30th of a second at f27, and you notice that now we can see the actual pattern that the water makes. So now we can see the pattern the water makes. So you're nice and crisp. You're staying on the tripod. You're doing just what you're supposed to be doing. And then here it goes to f22 at a 60th of a second. Notice how the pattern is getting much more detailed. And I'm going to switch right over here to this corner real quick. Look how we're starting to just get splashes in there. So it's 60th of a second, still maintaining your shutters or your exposure. So you're doing good. F16, 1/25th of a second. Now we're getting much more solid on the water, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. 250th of a second, much more solid on the water. I'm going to cut back on that same one. And you notice that now we've got almost drops in that water. And there you go. So getting a good job on that one, because this one's now a 500th of a second. And up here in this corner, we got a lot of drops of water in there right now. So you're doing exactly what you were supposed to be doing. Yeah. So up in this area right in here, we got lots of splashing going on. So good job.
Oh, thank you.
You maintained your exposure all the way through, kept it going, didn't lose anything. Yeah. So you did it real good.
Oh, thank you.
And then Kenneth, here's yours. And unfortunately, I only got the 3 on your little green man, but I got you.
Yeah.
And this is your f5.6 right here and your 100th of a second right there. So you got a pretty good exposure. And both you and Scott did this shadow going into the sunlight, which is really difficult to do in photography because we usually don't have enough dynamic range. But you did just fine on it. So you've got 5.6 at 100th of a second. So you notice the background back there is nice and soft. And then got to move you all out of the way. There we go. And then here you are at 6.3. Once again, background's not coming nice and clear yet. But I think I can see the writing on his, he's now got that writing is much clearer now. And then here you are on your 3rd one, and your little guy is just definitely nice and crisp and clear. But at 7.1, your background's still not totally in focus yet. So I miss seeing the rest of them.
I'll see if I can get the rest over.
Okay. And what'd you encounter when you were working on this other than losing your light?
My background ended up dropping about 12 feet further than what it originally was intended to be.
Uh-huh. That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. I just give you an estimate to start out with.
Yeah.
So you're okay. Yeah. But you maintained your light meter balance going all the way through. So that's the key. It's being able to keep that light meter balanced.
Yeah.
Okay. And you were using the M50, Kenneth. Was it easy to do?
Very easy. I found that-
Balancing the light meter?
Yes.
Oh, super. Super. That's good. That's good to hear. Okay, Scott, here's yours. And you did a whole series also. And going into camera raw. There you go. Okay. Now, this is where you had trouble keeping it balanced, right?
Yes, I couldn't get to it. Mine wouldn't go any higher than F22.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and took the last three F stops in this, and with 22, and at the last one there, yeah, you can't. It's way overexposed.
Yeah, way overexposed with the light that we had this week past. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I want to show you all this while you're in here. There's a little, remember how I talked to you all about the highlight indicator on the back of the camera? Remember that picture of the white cat on the couch that I took last week? And I told you that the histogram and the highlight indicator, see how the histogram is just spiked all the way up the side? And then on the back of Scott's camera, I'm sure it was blinking in all this white area. And then when we come over here into Bridge, Adobe Camera Raw, or Lightroom, we can also click this, and this would be the area that's blinking. Anything in red would have been what was blinking on the back of your camera. So we can see it on the back of the camera, but then we can also see it over here when we're processing it as well. So you notice that spike in that histogram. Okay, so then you got down to 22. Oh, this is 1/4 of a second. Now you did 22 at 1/8 of a second, still overexposing. And then
Yes.
here's your 22 at 1/15 of a second. Now you got it.
Yes.
So now it's on target, and we've got a good exposure going on. We've got these are yeah, so they're JPEGs. You resized them, so I can't blow them up too much, but we got blurry water going on there. And then your next one still maintained your exposure, so you're doing good on that. Your 20th of a second F20 at a 30th of a second. So blurring there. And then the next one is F14 at a 60th of a second. And once again, doing a really good job because you're not losing your exposure between each one of these. And then here you're coming, the water's getting even more crisp throughout here. So you can see it at 1/25th of a second. I think I can go into 300 on that. Yeah. So you can see it at 300th of a second. We're getting, 1/25th of a second, sorry, 300%. And then here you are at 250, and now you're getting real good solid water coming in there. And then you come down into your 500th of a second. Let's blur that one back up to 300. Yeah. And you see now we've got good balls of water in there, nice solid. So that 500th of a second. And once again, you move through that f-stop range and you move through your shutter speed range and kept them all balanced. So you did a good job on that one. Had it on tripod too.
No, I did not. I was all handheld.
You were hand holding. You're doing really good then. You got steady hands.
That's the stabilizer on the.
It helps. It helps. Okay, now here's your, and this is a lot like Ken. Ken was shooting off into that sunshine, and this makes it a really hard one. So here you're f4.5 and 200th of a second.
The upper left kept blinking on
Yes,
every
up here.
shot, all the way through here. Yes, I could
Yep.
not get the stop.
No, and it won't, because you're shooting from shade to direct sunlight. And that's just a good thing to remember, is that shade to direct sunlight, we're just not going to be able to get it. We got to go either one or the other, but we can't go both of them. And then here's your 5.6 at 250. So we're seeing a little bit more in the background there, still maintaining your exposure. I'm going to start right here. Here's your bricks. So the bricks are a tiny bit soft when we start. And then at 5.6, they get a bit more solid, 7.1, a bit more solid. But then down in here, we're starting to see the slats in the fence. So doing well. 8. Bricks are definitely more solid. And then here we are at F11, and the bricks are pretty good and solid at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then F16. Good solid bricks, fence is nice and solid over here. And then once again, you're maintaining your exposure all the way through. And then F22 bricks are kind of solid. Are you still hand holding?
This was on the tripod.
This was on the tripod. Okay, so you're still nice and steady on this one. So good job on that one. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Now my
So-
camera went to 32, so.
Yeah. So what'd you find while you were working on this homework, Scott?
So I think it's me and the camera were arguing about changing this. I had to keep opening up because my camera, the back flips out.
Yeah.
I could change everything there without a problem, but the ice and the other, when I do that, but I can't figure out how to change it while it's closed. So I've got to work.
So
through
when it's closed, then you have to push the Q button and toggle up to the ISO. I think the ISO is in your top right-hand corner, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, I'll try that next time.
And you don't actually have a ISO button on that camera then.
Yes, I do.
You do? You should be able just to push that ISO button then.
Well, that would only change the ISO,
Right.
but I couldn't change the f-stop numbers. Well, I was trying to balance the light.
While it was flipped in,
Yes.
that's pushing your plus minus button and rotating your front dial at the same time.
Okay, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it. Okay.
You see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So everything, and in fact, everything that you can do with the screen flipped out, you should be able to do with the screen flipped in as well. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go. Stephanie, did you find everything on your camera?
Not quite, but like I said, I just got it.
Just
Yeah.
got it? Okay.
Time to explore it.
Okay. Okay. So you can just go back to that same lesson from last week,
Yeah.
watch it with that camera. Yeah.
Mhm.
So an important thing for all of you all that I didn't mention last week is you all are all Canons now. Down in the lower right-hand corner, when you're looking through the viewfinder, you've got a little bitty green dot that blinks or is solid. And when it is solid, that means that you are in focus. That means it has found something to focus on and it's locked on to that. If it blinks, then it'll blink in AI servo, and that's just telling you that it's found something to focus on. So it's a little green dot. You can look through your viewfinder if you want to see it, and it's a little green dot in the lower right-hand corner. And then you also will have the little squares that light up. Amy, on your camera, you've got the little square that lights up, but you've got the little square that lights up as well. Ken, do you have the little square that lights up in yours? Goes from orange to green?
Mine goes actually from red to blue, and
Red to blue.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I didn't see the green dot, and I don't see it on the viewfinder or the back panel.
And it's not in the display pane. It's not inside the viewfinder then. No?
No,
Okay.
but I still get the in the viewfinder. I get the green or the blue square.
Blue square, right. So with all of us Canon users, you'll get it'll be an orangey red color, and then Ken just look through there so he can confirm that it's green, it's blue for us. But then when you are in focus, it'll be blue instead of being that red color. But then that green dot will also confirm to you that you've got something in focus. So just to make sure. Okay. Let me see. So Debbie's not here, but she'll be on the recording. I was just going to ask if you had any questions about the camera. And Scott, did you run across any questions on your camera?
No.
No. Okay. By the way, all you Canon users, we do not want this D+ little booger here. It's hard as I'll get out to get it unset. I can't tell you how to do it right off the top of my head, but we do not want the D+. So in case you ever see it, you'll just remember that Kathy said don't have it. Okay. And then Amy, anything on your camera that you encountered this week that you didn't know about?
Not really. I don't think I have the green dot.
Inside the viewfinder?
No, or on the back. I'm not
Yeah.
seeing it.
So you've got those little, the little squares that are showing you where you're in focus.
I have that.
Good. Okay. And then Ken, any buttons on the outside that you were curious about or had any issues with?
Not really. I've gone 2 vacations with this so far and played with it quite a bit.
Okay.
I think I've roughly 4,000 photos through it so far.
Okay. Okay. So you pretty much found all your buttons and your dials, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, good, good, good. And then Perry's not here this evening. So Perry, I was just going to ask if you had any questions, just email me those if you do. And then Stephanie, so yours is the Rebel 7, right? Yeah, so your back looks like this. And then once again, here's your Q button right there. And that turns all these items on right here. And then you just toggle using these little buttons right here to move you around this back display panel. And when you get to the one you want, like the ISO, you just press the set and then all your options will come up and then you can choose whichever option you want. And then once again, your f-stop, like the Rebels, is you push the AV plus minus button and then rotate the front dial and that changes your f-stop.
Okay.
Okay. And then I think for all you Rebel users that the standard menu item, this black one, like I'm showing you here, is much easier to use than the guided. Then Stephanie, you have the guided. Scott, I don't think you have the guided. But this guided menu to me is a little harder to use than the standard one. Okay, so if you've got any questions on your camera body while you all are working through this, then always feel free to ask me, even if we're not enrolled in a class right now. Okay, so to your work for this week. So lesson 2, you have probably already figured out that changing your f-stop and changing your shutter speed and balancing your light meter is a pain in the behind. And it takes a while and it's hard. So you probably already figured that out. But the reason why I want you to stay in the manual mode and intentionally change your f-stop and intentionally change your shutter speed, I want you to stay in that mode for a month or so, because eventually you're going to be able to explain to yourself why you're using this shutter speed and why you're using this f-stop. And if you're physically rotating the dials and punching the button and rotating the dials each time, what's going to happen is it's almost like the Montessori method of education, because you're tactily turning things and manipulating the machine, it's going to go into your head better. So by physically turning the dials and the knobs, it helps this sink into your brain. So once you feel like you're really comfortable rotating the dials to certain f-stops or certain shutter speeds, then I think you can move to one of the easier methods. So let me introduce you to the easier methods, and then you can decide later on if you would like to move to them. So the first one up on the top of your camera, and you all can rotate your dial on the top of your camera now. First of all, before you move that, everybody is at f5.6?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. F5.6. Super. Once again, just because all the lenses can go to 5.6. So now up on top, rotate your dial to AV. And when you rotate your dial to AV, this is aperture priority. So now you choose the f-stop and the camera chooses the shutter speed for you and balances your light meter. So if you would look through your viewfinder, push your button halfway down just to turn all the lights on, push your button halfway down. And now look around your room and just rotate your camera around the room and raise and lower your shutter button every single time you come to something new that's lit up. And you notice that, see how the shutter speed is changing for you? Correct?
Yes. Correct.
Yes,
F-stop stays the same, right? F-stop staying at 5.6, correct?
Correct.
Good. Okay, take a picture of something on your desk. Just click your shutter. Take a picture of something on your desk. And now take a picture of the light bulb or a light bulb. And then take a picture out the window or someplace like that. And now take a picture underneath your desk. And you'll notice when you go underneath your desk, you're going to see that it's a slow shutter speed. Right? Slow shutter speed when you're under your desk, right?
yes,
And then you look at those pictures on the back of your camera, and do they all look sort of okay? I mean, obviously, you know, no tripod and all that other stuff, but do they all look okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody see their light meter in the viewfinder? When you look through the viewfinder, do you see your light meter in the bottom of the viewfinder?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it in the middle?
Yes.
yes,
Good, good. If you're ever in aperture priority and the light meter shows, but it's out of balance, then that means that, number one, when you moved from manual to aperture priority, you were out of balance and you took that out of balance with you. Or number two, it means that you pushed the plus minus button accidentally, rotated the dial, and that took you out of balance. Amy, that would mean on your camera that you rotated the other dial and that took you out of balance. Perry, on your camera, you're not here tonight, but that would have meant you rotated the back dial and you took yourself out of balance. So if you're ever in aperture priority and you notice that your light meter is out of balance, then push your plus minus button and rotate yourself back into balance. If you ever need to underexpose or overexpose because you have highlights, then you would then push the plus minus button and rotate your dial to move you into out of balance or over balance, overexpose or underexpose. So when you are in aperture priority for Canons, your front dial becomes your major dial. This now changes your f-stop. And look through your viewfinder and notice that if you rotate your front dial, it'll now change your f-stop. Do that for me. Look through your viewfinder, rotate your front dial, and you'll see that now you can change your f-stop. See that? So your front dial now is in charge of your f-stop, where it used to be your AV button plus your front dial was in charge of your f-stop. But now when you're in aperture priority, your front dial is in charge of your f-stop. So put yourself back at 5.6 if you would, please. So when would you use aperture priority? So the reality is I shoot an aperture priority almost all the time. So I shoot an aperture priority so that if I'm doing wildflowers in a field, if I want to do all the wildflowers in the whole field, then I would set my f-stop on 22 or 32 and know that I had to use my tripod or else hold my camera nice and steady. If I were doing wildflowers in a field and I wanted to do just a portrait of one little wildflower, then I would change my f-stop to 5.6 so that the background's blurry. And now I would photograph portraits of just individual wildflowers. If I were photographing birds, then I would set my f-stop on, say, 5.6 if it was a small bird, because that's enough depth of field for a small bird. I would check my shutter speed. And if my shutter speed wasn't fast enough, I would touch my ISO button and raise my ISO until my shutter speed got to be fast enough. So I can shoot action in aperture priority by simply watching my shutter speed, setting my f-stop for whatever the subject is, watch my shutter speed. And then if my shutter speed's not fast enough, then I can raise my ISO. So aperture priority is super simple to use because we're just using our ISO to raise our shutter speed in the event that our action needs to be higher. Make sense?
Yeah.
Little confusing, but if you work with it, you'll see what I'm talking about. So the next thing on that dial is shutter priority, and that is TV for the Canon users. It's an S for everybody else, but for Canon, it's TV, timed value. So rotate your dial on the top to the TV. And now when you look through the viewfinder, rotate your front dial until your shutter speed changes to 60. So when your shutter speed changes to 60, tell me that you're at 60.
I'm at 60.
You're at 60. Good.
Yeah, 60.
60. Good. Everybody?
Yes.
Yes. Good. Now point your camera just at something on your desk. And when you're looking through your viewfinder now with your shutter speed at 60, is your f-stop blinking?
Yes.
Yes.
Is your
Yes.
light meter in balance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So what's happening in shutter priority is you set the shutter speed. The camera sets the f-stop for you and balances your light meter. In Canon, the light meter stays in the middle, but the f-stop blinks at you to say, if you want to use 60th of a second, you can, but I don't have enough light to use 60th of a second. And I'll take this picture if you want to, but I am trying to get in touch with your brain to tell you we got a problem here. So that's shutter priority. So if you see that f-stop blinking at you, it's trying to say, I don't have enough light. And if you want to take the picture, go ahead and click the shutter if you want to, and you'll see it's fairly dark. Because it's trying to tell you that it does not have enough light to take the picture, but it'll let you take the picture all you want. So correct, Stephanie, it turns out like a dark picture? Yeah, okay. Now rotate, keep looking at the same thing on your desk through your viewfinder. Rotate that shutter speed dial, the front dial now, until your f-stop quits blinking at you. And when your f-stop quits blinking at you, what f-stop do you get?
1/6.
1/6. Good. Take the picture, Scott. I mean, Ken. What shutter speed do you get when the f-stop quits blinking at you?
Oh, 3.5.
3.5. Good. Good. So what shutter speed do you get when the f-stop finally quits blinking at you? Amy, Scott, and Stephanie?
I get a 3.
A 3? Good.
Sure.
And then what f-stop did you get with that third of a second?
4.5.
4.5. Good. Take the picture. Stephanie and Amy, what'd y'all get?
Yeah, it's not changing for me.
You
Same.
rotate your front dial,
Sure.
and that should change your shutter speed.
Changes the shutter speed.
Yeah, you can see it right through the viewfinder. You don't need to look on the back. Look through the viewfinder.
Yes, not giving me.
When you're rotating your front dial, what's changing, Stephanie?
So when you see the front dial, you're talking about this dial here, right?
Now what? I'm sorry.
The front dial, you're talking about this dial.
It's the one where your pointing finger is, where your index finger is.
So that is changing my, not my f-stop, but my shutter speed.
This one right here. See on
Yeah.
the screen,
Yeah.
this big dial right here.
Yeah.
Okay, now do this for me. just push your shutter button halfway down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just push it halfway down, let it up.
Yep.
Okay, now rotate that dial. And what's it changing?
My, well. it's
Shutter
changed.
speed?
The shutter speed.
Yeah, this number right here.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what it's supposed to be doing. Okay, so look through the viewfinder, look through the viewfinder and rotate that front dial until your f-stop quits blinking.
Okay. Now,
And Amy, what f-stop did you get when your f-stop quit blinking?
4.0 at 1/6 of a second.
Good. And then you take the picture and you'll see that it comes out, the light comes out anyway. Fine. What'd you get, Stephanie?
I'm still working on it.
Okay. You see that it's like a sixth or a third or something like that. It's pretty slow. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
I'm going up. And 4.
Fourth, good. Take the picture. Move your finger over and take the picture. Okay, so shutter priority is when you know what shutter speed you want, and then the camera sets the f-stop for you. There's not too many times when I'm doing just general photography when I know exactly what shutter speed I want. So, you know, if we're working on a waterfall, then we can kind of start with 1/8 of a second if we want to. But regular old run-of-the-mill photography, there's not a time when I know absolutely positively this is the shutter speed I want. Most of the time with aperture priority, I just kind of check to see what shutter speed that I want. But Scott, for instance, when you're doing Northern Lights, you're going to want to make sure you set a certain shutter speed so that your stars don't blur. And then that's when you could use shutter priority, for instance, when you know, and then you're going to raise your ISO until your f-stop quits blinking at you. So that's when you would know definitely what shutter speed you wanted. You could do the same thing in manual mode, set your shutter speed, set your f-stop, and then raise your ISO until your light meter balances as well. So it just kind of depends on which way you want to do it.
Okay.
So shutter priority is when you know good and well what shutter speed we need. And so there's a couple of things. I'll show you one in just a second where we know what shutter speed we need. But most of the time, as I said, we can do it in aperture priority. So 90% of the time you can shoot in aperture priority, but this has to work with your brain. So you've got to work with your brain and how you shoot and what you're shooting, and then see which one of these you want. What I don't want you all to use are all of these other, I call them hokey modes over here. I don't want you to use all of these things because you know already how to do this. So don't turn the dial, just pay attention as I'm pointing them out. So the lady right here with the big hair, okay, that's the portrait mode. And the portrait mode is simply that we're going to make the background soft. Now, how do we make the background soft?
F-stop.
Sure.
F-stop, exactly. You all already know how to do that. We don't need one of these little hokey modes to show you how to do that, okay? The landscape mode, how do we get the most depth of field possible?
Again, f-stop.
F-stop, yeah. So we already know how to do that. We don't need that for us because all it's going to do is try to put you to the biggest f-stop possible. That's all it's going to do. The little tulip mode, all that's going to do is once again, just let you blur the background, but we know how to do that. And then the little running man mode, all the little action mode does is set your ISO as high as possible. And when you set your ISO as high as possible and you go to shutter priority, then that lets you set your shutter speed as high as possible. Okay. So that's all the little running man does. So you all know how to do those now. So we don't need those at all. So why you don't want to use those is because you already know how to do it. Now, Scott, your camera will do this. You have the little green box on your camera.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, put your camera on the green box mode. And
Okay.
this will only work on Scott's camera. Scott's got the green box mode, right?
Yes,
Now, on the back of the camera, Scott, push your menu button, and how many menus going across do you have?
1, 2, 3, 5.
5, good. Rotate the dial and put yourself into the M mode, the manual mode. And then press your menu button. And how many menus do you have when you're in the manual mode?
5.
You only have 5
Yes,
in the manual mode?
yes.
Ah, it doesn't work on your camera then. Okay, so it didn't work on that one.
I've got a green box.
You got a green box?
Mhm.
Push your menu button, and how many menu items do you have on the green box?
5.
5. Now go to the manual mode, the M mode, and how many menu items do you have? Should have 11.
5.
You've only got 5 too.
Mhm.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay. Because
Now-
Stephanie, what? Go ahead.
This is in guided mode. When
Ah,
it changed to standard.
you're just pressing the menu button. So I don't think it
Yeah.
matters which one.
Well, mine, like everything that you show on the back,
Yeah,
mine is a white background
yes.
versus the black
Okay.
background.
Okay. So when you go into the manual mode and you push the menu button, how many menus do you have across the top? Usually have 11. So does Scott's camera usually have 11.
Yeah, I was in a guided mode also.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1, 2, hold on. 1, 2. Oops.
How many are there going across? Red, blue, and yellow? Different menu tabs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got 9 under red, 5 under blue, 2 under purple,
Good.
5 under yellow, 1 under
Green.
the green, and another 1 underneath another green.
But if you go to the green box mode, how many do you have going across? Same number?
Yes.
Scott, did you see all those colors going across when you push
Yeah.
the menu button?
Yes.
And did yours go from 11 to 5 when you were in the green
I
mode?
have still have the 5 main menus and there's a bunch of sub menus under each one.
Yeah, of course.
Right,
Yeah.
so when I'm in manual mode. Yes, I have the 5 across the top. But like red has 6, blue
Yeah.
has 3, purple is the 1. The yellow is 5.
Yeah. See how you have a whole lot of menus when you're in the manual mode?
It actually let me have 6 at the top.
Okay. But then when you're in the green box mode, you've only got 5, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what that means is that if Scott didn't know any better and he was shooting in the green box mode, he would think he only had 5 menus. But then if he goes to the manual mode, he's actually got 9 menus or 11 menus, depending on the camera. So what Canon did to keep you from hurting yourself is that if you're shooting in the green box mode, it just took away a whole bunch of features that you paid for, and you don't even know that it took them away. So it quit doing that, Stephanie, in your 7 model. So it doesn't do that anymore, but it did it in some of the earlier models. And so as a result, if you're shooting in those automated modes, you don't even know that you've got features on your camera, or if you read about them in the manual, you can't access them. So by shooting in the manual mode, aperture priority mode, and shutter priority mode, you have full access to every feature that your camera has. And that's why I want you all to stay in the manual aperture priority mode or the shutter priority mode, because then you've got all the access. So until you get to the point where you've memorized f-stop and shutter speed, I would like you to stay on the manual mode. Now that means using your camera. It won't help you if the camera's in the closet. Okay, so using the camera until you get to the point where you know those f-stops and shutter speeds, and stick in the manual mode, but it should only take you about a month to feel comfortable moving over into the aperture priority or shutter priority mode. Then life gets a lot easier for you. Okay. Good.
Yep.
Yep.
So I moved you all in the very beginning on that handout that I sent you 2 days before class. I moved you all to some settings, and I want to explain to you why I moved you there. So the first one is AI Servo. And if you just look on your back display panel, on your guided menu on your back display panel, you see how you're in the AI Servo mode. And Amy, for you, it's called Servo on the back display panel. But everybody else, it's called, you see AI Servo?
Yes.
Now, what that AI Servo is doing is when you're pointing your camera at your subject and you've got your shutter button halfway down and you've got that little box on your subject and it's locked onto that subject, as long as you keep your button halfway down, if you happen to move, the focus will go right back to your subject. If your subject happens to move, your focus will go right back to the subject. So by keeping your camera on AI Servo, whether you move or your subject moves, your camera will refocus for you. If you were on the one shot, which I don't want you to do, if you focus and then have your finger halfway down on the shutter button, if you happen to move, shift your position, it still is focused on that point in space. It's not focused on your subject anymore. It's just focused on that point in space. And it'll hold on that point in space until you raise your finger up and put it back down again. So we want to stay on AI Servo. You will even be able to hear the camera constantly focus. And in some of your cameras, you'll see the little boxes moving around. On Amy's camera, it'll do that, for instance. Your rapid release is the 3 pieces of paper on top of each other. And look on the back, you'll see that icon as well, the 3 pieces of paper on top of each other. And this simply means that as long as you hold your button down, the camera will just keep taking pictures. So you've got, some of you all have got a 3 pieces of paper, and some of you all have got a 3 pieces of paper with an H. Scott and Stephanie, I know you all have got a 3 pieces of paper button on your back right-hand side, correct? And Ken, do you also have a 3 pieces of paper button?
Yes.
Little icon with 3 pieces of paper, back right-hand side?
No, I do not on mine.
You don't on yours. Scott, you do, right?
I don't see it.
No, I do have it on my, I don't have a button for it, but I've got it on my screen.
You've got it on your screen. Exactly. Exactly. Stephanie, you see those 4 little toggles down in the bottom right where your thumb is? One of those has a 3 pieces of paper on it, doesn't it?
The left-hand one. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to scoot real quick back to here. Scott, do you have one right here?
No.
No? Okay. So some of you have the little 3 pieces of paper button right on the camera body. Others, you're going to actually have to make a change. And then if you have just this one little square showing on your icons, then that's where I don't want you to be. Is everybody on the back of your camera the 3 pieces of paper?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Scott?
Yes, I found it.
Okay, good. Now, some of you might also have 3 pieces of paper with an H. Stephanie, I think you've got 3 pieces of paper with an H. So if you push the Q button and then push your 3 pieces of paper, does anybody have a 3 pieces of paper with an H?
No, I don't have that.
I
You
do.
just have 3 pieces of paper. Ken, 3 pieces of paper
Yeah.
with an H? No?
Yes.
Yeah, you
I
do.
do.
Good. Scott, 3 pieces of paper with an H?
Oh,
No, okay. So the 3 pieces of paper with an H is if you hold your button down, it'll fire rapidly. It'll fire as fast as the camera will go, as will let you do it. So Amy's camera, for instance, the RP, Amy, you have the 3 pieces of paper with the H, right?
I do. Yes.
Yeah, and then Perry's camera does also for the recording for Perry. The 3 pieces of paper with an H, if you're at 4,000th of a second shutter speed, it'll fire off 7, 8, 9, 10 frames a second with that fast of a shutter speed. So the 3 pieces of paper with the 3 pieces of paper icon by itself will fire off about, depending on your camera, 3 frames per second to 5 frames per second. Where if you do have the H button on it next to it, then that'll fire 5 to 7 to 14 frames per second. So that's why I want you to be on the 3 pieces of paper, because just in the event this is a good shot, if you want to hold that button down, it'll just keep firing as long as you hold the button down. Amy, the 3 pieces of paper with the S puts you into silent mode. So in the event that you're photographing in a church or something like that, that's what's on your camera, on Perry's camera as well. And then the 1 individual focus point. So that's where you are, the topmost right-hand button on the back of your camera. That's this button right here, topmost right-hand button on the back of your camera. That's where you can move your focus points. And also you can activate your focus points to be able to move them around. We talked about that last time in class so that you can move your focus point around. So those individual focus points you can use as a cluster depending on your camera, as an individual, or else all of them. The only time that I use all of them is if I were photographing large birds in flight, like pelicans or something like that. Maybe if there were an airplane going over, but otherwise I use individual focus points and I just get to where I move them around with my thumb. I just got really fast at it so that I can move my focus points where I want them to be. So putting that focus point where you want it to be can make your photos a whole lot more interesting. Just to give you an example, I was letting the camera, I was testing the R7 for Canon the other day, and I was letting the R7, letting it choose the focus point where it wanted to be based on animal eye focus, because the R7 has animal eye focus. I was photographing a little hair streak butterfly that has an artificial eye on the tip of its wing that is a diversion for birds catching it. And the camera locked onto that artificial eye and thought that that was the eye of the butterfly and not the real eye of the butterfly. So being able to change it to the real eye of the butterfly is that individual focus point. So we need to make sure that we're focusing where we want the camera to focus and not letting the camera just focus. By the way, if you ever do set the cluster where all of the focus points where you've activated all the focus points in the photograph, there's only one place the camera can focus. The camera cannot focus on 2 places at one time. So it only focuses on one place. That's where I figure I might as well do it because I know what I want it versus letting the camera do it. So individual focus points. Questions on those settings that I did for you already? No?
I'm good.
Okay. Y'all are still in shutter priority, correct? TV?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. Now let's talk about flash and using your flash on your camera. Everybody has a pop-up flash except Amy. Amy, no pop-up flash on that camera, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay. So the pop-up flash, go ahead and punch your lightning bolt button and pop your flash up. That pop-up flash is a really good thing. And does it have a little flash on it, Amy?
This,
The RP?
no, this is my G15.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you can use this with the pop-up flash. Okay. Everybody got your flash popped up?
No.
So the little bitty lightning bolt should be in the front of the camera. Stephanie, you got yours? Ken, you've got yours? Good. See in the front where it's a little lightning bolt, Scott?
Nope.
And if it's not there, check on the top by the shutter button if there's a little black lightning bolt. Hold your camera up for me.
Sorry.
Yeah. Over on, okay. Where is it? Over on the left-hand side. Up by the viewfinder. See, there's a little lightning bolt up there. You should be looking almost right at it. Yay!
I can do it manually.
Okay, there should be a little button up there somewhere.
Okay.
There's check your manual because there's a little button. Now you've got it popped up. Okay, everybody's got your flash popped up. If you will look at this photograph, you will notice that down on the ground, there is a really definite shadow. You see down there on the ground? So that tells you that when I was taking this photograph, we've got some pretty harsh shadows, because when the shadows form those definite lines, those are pretty harsh shadows. So since we have that harsh sunlight, I have used a flash, and in this case, I've used a 430 EX2. And if you're looking to buy a flash, the 430 EX2 is an excellent flash. It's older, it doesn't cost very much money, it costs about $235. You can probably find a used one. It's just as good as the EX3, and it just doesn't cost you as much money. So the 430 EX2 is an excellent flash. Your flash, your pop-up flash, knows how far to send light based on where you focused. So when I focused on this young lady's face for this portrait, my camera communicated to my flash to fire this far away. So your flash is called an ETTNL flash, electronic through the lens metering flash. That pop-up flash is. And that electronic through the lens metering flash, when you focus on your subject, then the flash knows exactly how far away to send light, and then it turns off. So as long as you are in the manual mode, the shutter priority mode, or the aperture priority mode, and you're using your flash is incredibly smart. So the flash knows, go wherever you're focusing, send light there, and only send enough light based on the light meter. So it's a super smart flash. So point your camera at that subject on your desk, and remember how you had your light meter balanced just a little bit ago, where your shutter speed and the f-stop wasn't blinking at you. You remember that? So
Yeah.
rotate that shutter speed until the f-stop's not blinking at you, and then click your shutter and take the picture. Saw somebody's camera go.
It would be me.
Good. And then Scott, you've got to make sure that the bill of your cap doesn't push the flash down. Yeah, there you go. It's always a bugger when I'm shooting with a baseball cap. Okay. So when
Okay.
you point your camera at that object on your desk, balance your light meter so your f-stop's not blinking at you, and then take your picture with your flash. And then tell me how it looks on the back of the camera when you pull the picture up. How's it look on the back of the camera?
Much better.
Much better? Pretty good? It's not overexposing everything. It's just kind of lighten it up, and then that's it.
Balanced.
Yeah. Correct, Stephanie?
Yes.
Yeah. Correct,
Okay.
Ken? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. That's because the flash is an automatic ETTNL flash. And if you bought the 430 EX flash, the big top mounted flash, put it on the camera, turned it on ETTNL, it would do exactly the same thing. It just goes out, hits your subject, and turns off. It's all based on where you focus. So wherever you're focusing, the flash knows to send light there, and that's it. That's all it's supposed to do. It's not supposed to light up the whole room at all. So your flash is a great way to add light to your subject. And you see here, you don't even see that I'm using a flash. And then the same thing in this photograph, you don't even see that I'm using the flash, because it's not dominant. So if you find yourself in a situation like this where you're at a party or a restaurant and you want to photograph people and use that flash, put them in front of those little beautiful little twinkly lights that we have everywhere, because it makes the background look so much prettier in that situation. And so just don't, line people up against a willy-nilly background. I noticed this background with the lights behind it, and I thought, okay, this is where I need to stop the little guy and ask him to pose for me. So think about what that background looks like, and those little twinkly lights will look really good. But once again, it doesn't look like I've used a flash, and that's simply because this flash just goes out, hits the subject, and then turns off. Now, one of those situations where I told you I used shutter priority is on this gannet in Africa. So this is a mongoose, looks like a cat, but it's a mongoose. And at night, while we're eating dinner, it comes out in the rafters, and it's now going to start hunting around in the thatched roof of the rafters, looking for insects and things to munch down on. Well, this is too cute of an animal for me not to take a photograph of it. So we don't have enough light to stop it, because we need 60th of a second to stop a living creature. Remember that from lesson 1, 60th of a second. So I'm simply going to set my shutter speed in shutter priority at a 60th of a second. And I don't care whether the light meter balances or not. And now the flash knows to send more light. So move your shutter speed to 60th of a second. And we're not going to balance our light meter, and keep that flash popped up. And photograph the same thing. So 60th of a second, photograph the same thing using the flash, and then point it around the room at a couple of other things. Point it somewhere, lamp, that Ken, if that dog's in there, point it at the dog, point it at the cat, if the cat's in there. And you see how when we're at 60th of a second and we're in a sort of dark room like you are right now, look at the picture on the back of the camera. Doesn't look bad. And that's the same thing that it did with the gannet. So there's lamps on, there's lights in the restaurant, but yet the 60th of a second stops living creatures. So that's going to stop the gannet, but then my flash is going to take care of it. So this is when I use shutter priority, 60th of a second. How the pictures look in there?
Good.
Looking good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. So this is what I would use if I were taking pictures at a party and the sun, kind of like it is right now, the sun's going down, or even we're in the house and I still wanted to take pictures of people. 60th of a second shutter speed is going to stop living creatures, pop that flash up, and then we can use it to photograph people. And so we just use that 60th of a second. So it's a pretty simple little process. So that's one opportunity when I do use shutter priority, setting it at 60th of a second. Okay. Here's outside, completely dark. And we've got these, trees all over the world with little sparkly lights all over them. Just put my traveling companion in front of one of those lights, shutter priority, 60th of a second, pop up the flash. Focus on her, click the shutter, shutter opens, flash fires, flash turns off, shutter closes, all over with. And we get a really nice balanced photograph, because we haven't told the flash to light everything up. The flash is just being told to light up the subject and then turn off. So give this a try and see how it works, because that little pop-up flash, the pop-up flash, by the way, will go 8 to 10 feet. The top mounted flash will go 30 feet. So if you find that you do want to photograph things that are a little further away, that top mounted flash works really well. Questions? Good. Okay. So that top mounted flash, the advantage of having the top mounted flash is that the top rotates to the left and the right. The top rotates up so that we can bounce it off the ceiling. In this case, at the Cadillac Ranch up in Amarillo, I pointed the flash toward the dog over at the side, used my focus point over on the side to focus on the dog. that tells the flash, go over here, hit the dog, and then did my composition a little different so that the photograph would look different. And then the neat thing about this is when the flash went off and hit the dog, and once again, you can't tell that the flash has hit the dog, the spillover of the light illuminated all the metallic in the cars, because the cars didn't look that pretty to me at all. I was there in a snowstorm. It was overcast. It was, the light was horrible, but I was working on assignment and had to do it. But when the flash hit the metallic in that paint, it lit all that metallic paint up. So then I thought, oh, this is cool. I can just crawl all over these cars and take all the pictures I want with the flash, and you'd never see that I was in an overcast, snowy area. So the flash does neat work, that top mounted flash. So it is a nice thing to have. Other ways you can add light are with a reflector. Anybody own a reflector? Yeah, Amy, you've got one. So a reflector, I'll show you a picture in just a second. It's a big round disc, silver on one side, gold on the other side. And what I've done here is there's a window behind the young lady at top left. I put a silver reflector lower right, and that reflector now is catching the sunlight from upper left and reflecting it back up on her face. Because she's got a very pink complexion, I used the silver color, and then that gives a more white light. Gold gives a more golden light. So you would play around with those depending on what kind of a color you wanted. Here's what the 5-in-1 reflector looks like. Costs $29.95 on Amazon. You could have it delivered tomorrow. Okay. And this one has silver on one side, gold on the other side. And then you put this diffuser panel in the middle to hold it steady. And then when you want to fold it up, you just twist it and it folds up into that little disc, and you slide it into your camera bag, and then you bring it out when you need it. I love this in the garden because it illuminates flowers in just incredible ways. So it adds light in really, really interesting ways. And once again, costs $29. You can just keep it in your camera bag, use it where you want to. In your homework assignment, by the way, I told you to cover a piece of cardboard with aluminum foil and do the same thing, reflect the sunlight on your subject. Or you can use the windshield screen out of your car if you want to do that. Here's a before and after of that young lady. The one over on the left-hand side, this is just that harsh sunlight. And then the right side, I put a silver reflector behind her, reflecting sunlight on her. And then that filled in her face. So I'm using the sunlight to fill in her face in addition to using the flash. So a reflector is a really, really nice gadget to have. So just, one of those things where you keep it, use it when you need it, fold it away when you don't need it. So the next thing on your list is the concept of flat to the film plane. Your depth of field, your area in focus is absolutely parallel to the back of the camera. Absolutely parallel. So if you tilt your camera like this, the area in focus tilts like this. If you tilt your camera like this, the area in focus tilts like this. So it's what's called flat to the film plane. And we still use the old word film, but it's flat to the film plane. So if you want to maximize a shallow depth of field so that we can get that really nice, pure, blown out background, blurry background, then we would keep the camera, in this case with the calla lily, we would keep the camera absolutely parallel to the edge of that flower. And then that gives us that whole edge plus all the water drops in focus. And you notice that the interior of the flower is out of focus. So that gives you an idea of how shallow that depth of field is. Flat to the film plane on the butterfly and the cockerel butterfly center. So you notice how I've kept the camera absolutely parallel to the butterfly so that the head, the antenna, the wings are absolutely in focus all the way up and down, but that's because I kept the camera parallel to the butterfly. So when we're working in those 4.5s, 5.6s, even those 4.0s, those are shallow depth of fields. And if we want to make sure that we maximize it, then we keep the camera absolutely parallel to it, called flat to the film plane. So here's a good example of it. I'm using a telephoto lens in this case, f8, excuse me, this one's an f10. I'm focused on the beak of the caiman down in Brazil, but you see how my depth of field goes all the way to that front tooth there. So that's my depth of field. But if I pull the boat up absolutely parallel to the caiman, that's the same f10 depth of field. So by photographing flat to the film plane, absolutely parallel to the back of the camera, then I can maximize that depth of field. And it looks like I've got lots more depth of field than what I actually have. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good concept for you to understand. So play around with that one. And then on your handout, I've talked about tripods for you. And this is my absolute favorite tripod, costs $319. And it is a MePhoto Globetrotter Classic Carbon Fiber. It weighs 3 pounds. So when I travel, it goes on the top of my suitcase. It's the last thing in my suitcase. It folds up to a little over 1 foot long. And then when it extends, it'll extend to about 5'7". And then when you put your camera on the top of it, and then, you know, on top of the ball head, then you can go even higher, taller than that for if you all are taller than 5'7". So it's a really nice, sturdy tripod. It comes everything you need all in one tripod. So we've got a ball head, which is what photographers use. It's one handle, loosen it, tighten it, move your camera around. It has an Arcus Swiss style base plate to it. This base plate right here, Allen wrenches to the bottom of your camera, and you never take it off. You just leave it. And then if you have 2 cameras, you buy an extra one and you put one on each camera. And if you have a long lens, you buy another one and you put it in the middle of the long lens on the tripod collar. So the cool thing about this MePhoto Globetrotter is everything you need comes in one piece. And all those years ago when MePhoto sent it to me and asked me to try it, I told them, oh, no. I only use the expensive tripods. Well, you know what? My $1,000 tripod sits in the back of my car and never gets used. So this little booger is a good tripod. It also comes in blue, green, red, orange, where the little silver is here, gold. So it comes in a variety of different colors if you just like to make a statement in your own color. Okay. Questions on tripod? No? Okay. So lenses. Scott and I were emailing a little bit about lenses for a trip that he's got coming up. So always feel free to ask me about lenses if you want to. Your regular lens is a
Kathy,
50
I'm sorry.
millimeter. Yeah, go ahead,
I
Ken.
ran to get mine because mine is very similar to yours.
Uh-huh.
It's a little cheaper. It's a K&F Concept.
Yes.
So I was just putting that out there. It's also a little bit cheaper, and this one has a detachable monopod on it as well.
Okay. And really the reality is a monopod doesn't hold your camera as sturdy as you want. This one will do the same thing. A monopod doesn't hold your camera as sturdy as you want. So the tripod does it for you. So yeah. And what was your brand, Ken? What was it called, Ken?
KO Concept. Sorry, I didn't realize my video was off.
That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it looks like it does the same thing. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So you need a tripod. That's all there is to it. And, you know, there's times in your shooting when you need one. Okay. So lenses, talking about lenses, we have super wide angle lenses. We have medium telephoto lenses, and then we have telephoto lenses. So we have medium lenses, super wide angles. So I think in your kit, you need 3 lenses. Ken, do your lenses come off?
Yes.
Okay, your lenses come off. Yeah. So I think you need in your kit, you need 3 lenses. One of them's a super wide angle lens, and a super wide angle lens is what you get if you move your head from side to side and up and down. So if you just move your head from side to side and up and down, that's the field of view that you get with a super wide angle lens. So on Amy's camera, yours would be the 14 to 35 or 15 to 35. Scott and Stephanie, yours would be the 10 to 22. That would be your super wide angle lenses. Ken, are your numbers the same as everybody else's? Do you know?
Let me go grab the one that came with the camera, because like I said, I got the 100mm too. So let me go grab
And what's the
my-
one you have on it right now? That'll answer my question for me.
The one that I'm running right now is 18 to 150.
Okay, yours are the same numbers as ours. Yes. So your other one should be something like a 10 to 22 or something like
The
that.
one, I believe it's to 35.
It's to 35. Okay. So you got like a
18
10
to
to
35, maybe.
something like that. Yeah. 18 to 35.
I believe so.
Okay. So see, that one's an 18 to what?
18, that's why 18 to 150. That's why I just use this one.
Yes, because your 18 to 35 is just redundant. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Okay. So yours also, Ken, would be your 10 to something like a 10 to 22. So this allows you to see wide open vistas, big sky. And these are the type lenses also that you don't shoot the camera straight up and down. If the sky's good, you tilt the camera back to exaggerate the sky like here. And if the foreground is good, you tilt the camera down to exaggerate the foreground on the bottom. So we shoot these off axis sometimes to enable us to really exaggerate the sky or exaggerate the foreground. Scott, this is what you would use on your Northern Lights so that everything's just like really, really big. The neat thing about these lenses also is that they focus really close. So that means we can get close to certain things and we can bring the foreground really, really close to our viewer. So these are nice as our landscape lenses because we can make the sky really big, the foreground really big. So those 10 to 22s, or Amy, in your cases, your 14 to 35 or your 16 to 35, that's what we use those for. I want to show you this real quick little movie. This is every lens I could get my hands on one day. And so there's a 105, there's a 300, there's a 420, 500, but you see at 10, you can't even see that building way off in the distance. And then as I put each lens on, you see, I can see the building better and better and better. And then when I get to 10, I can't even see it. So the 10mm lens, the stuff in the distance is going to be way, way off. But then if you're using your telephoto, like the 500, that brings things in. So before you get envious of a friend's lens, try it first. And if you want to rent lenses, Photo Rental Source here in Houston has lenses that you can rent for a vacation, for a holiday, or just to try out. So you see that every lens out there does something different. Each lens that Canon or any other camera manufacturer has made is designed for a specific purpose. So a lens is a tool. Craftsman never made a wrench because it was pretty. They make wrenches because they're tools. And so every lens is a tool and it has a specific design for it and it has a specific purpose for it. So it might be an all-purpose lens or what I would call an all-purpose lens, or it might be a super wide lens, but do some research. Before you ever buy a lens, if you have any doubts, email me. If I'm around, I'll answer you immediately and help you out. So just feel free to ask questions anytime. But I want to show you the difference between 3 lenses real fast. So this is the 18 to 55. This is like, Ken, like your 18 to 35. And Scott, I think you had this lens too, the 18 to 55, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Stephanie, do you have this on your camera?
Yeah,
The
that
18
one.
to 55? Okay. So this is just your kind of basic lens that comes with your camera. I'm zooming it out to 55mm and I'm putting it at f4. And this is the nice, soft, blown out background that I get. So this is just in my office looking out of the window at the street below. So that's the nice soft background that I get. But if I put a 50 millimeter lens on f4, that's the background I get. So this is a 50 millimeter 1.4 lens designed to give you a super creamy background. And at f4, you see now what a difference the background looks like. So you can still see the Windows screen, but now it's gotten much, much blurrier out there. And then this is the 70 to 200 professional level Canon lens, f4, zoomed out to 200 millimeters. And this is still f4. And here's what the blurry background looks like on this lens at f4. So you see each one of the lenses is at f4, but the blurriness of the backgrounds is all depending on the construction of the lens. Unfortunately, in photography, the more expensive the lens, the better the background's going to be. And the more expensive the lens, the better the autofocus is going to be. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes. Okay. So I just want you to see that every lens has its own purpose and its own thing in it. Okay. Questions on that one?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay, good. Okay, so that's all I've got for you all tonight. You've got a homework assignment, but I won't see you again. So this is just for you to do. And Ken, if you want to send me those pictures, I'll gladly look at them and give you feedback on them. Okay. But,
Okay.
you know, either way. But coming up, classes that are coming up next Monday is a workflow for wildlife photographers. This is a class where I just go through, here's how to download your pictures. Here's how to start working on them. And this is just a fast, but for wildlife photographers. Coming up in September or October, I'll do the introduction to Bridge Adobe Camera Raw. Lightroom, so that you can get introduced to that to learn how to process your raw files. And then on September 28th and September 30th next month, I have live photography of hummingbirds, because we just started. Hummingbird migration is just beginning. So it'll be in full swing at the end of September. And that's here in the Houston area where we go photograph some hummingbirds at a park. And then still traveling coming up this year, Northern Ireland in September, Northern Lights in September, and then Spain in October. And then I also have a creative retreat workshop coming up in Rockport at the Art Center. And this is where you're given homework assignments and we work on enhancing that creativity in your brain. So don't think that you've got to be a super advanced photographer to do it. It's just giving you challenging exercises and then being around other people and talking about our creativity. So it's a good workshop. It's a lot of fun workshop. Very, very nice. And it only takes 8 people. So it's a good one. And then that's all my contact information. You all have got that on the bottom of your handout. And if you're on Facebook, come over on Facebook, make friends with me. That way we can keep in touch with each other, share our photos. And then I've also got my blog at kathyadamsclark.blog if you'd like to read any of my articles. So any questions?
Micro lenses, are they worth it?
No, personally. This is my personal take on it. I can use extension tubes, which go between the lens and the camera to get closer than a macro lens will let me get.
Okay.
I can use a close-up filter on the front of the lens, and I can get closer than a macro lens will let me get. And I have a whole 4-week class in macro photography. And I love doing macro, but I have a macro lens and it sits in the closet. It doesn't even make it to the camera bag.
Okay.
And I let a friend who's a really good photographer use it the other day because she just, she was kind of itching to try it. And she brought it back after a week. And I said, do you want to buy it? And she said, no, it's just going to sit in my closet too. Because it will not focus any closer than the lens you have on your camera right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I can help you out from spending some money, then that's the truth on that one. Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you look at my blog, by the way, on macro photography, you can read about close-up filters and extension tubes, and you can see how they work.
Okay.
You just add them to the existing lenses you own, and then any lens becomes a macro lens.
Gotcha.
Lots of fun. Okay. Other questions? No? Okay, thank you all. You've been a good group. I've really appreciated having you. It's been good having you in here, and I hope to see you in another class soon,
Okay.
Yeah.
somewhere along the way. You can't learn photography in one sitting. You got to keep working on it and working on it and working on it. Okay.
Oh, I'm definitely Photoshop class is next.
Oh, good, good, good. Because there's 4 levels of that. So yeah, we got to learn how to get these pictures out of the camera and processed. Yes. And you took all those trips already, so you got to process those boogers. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll put one on calendar for you all. Okay.
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 Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank-
I will share the recording with you tomorrow, and I hope to see you in another class someday soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody.
Night.
Thank you.